Mr. Supko, good to see you again. I enjoyed
Pleasure.
sitting down with you, I guess it was a couple of months ago now, and talking about some of your reports. I wish it were under better circumstances. Let me follow up with you about some of the things that we talked about then, because I have to say that what has been published, as you pointed out to me when we met, what has been published in the press about the reconstruction efforts in Afghanistan, our strategy in Afghanistan, is actually a small fraction of what your office has been publishing and trying to draw attention to for years. And I think it's really, the work your office has been doing is very important, and what you've documented is, I think, would be and should be startling to the American people. Certainly it is to me. So let me ask you this. Do any specific trends lead you to believe that the Afghan security forces will one day be able to hold off the Taliban and prevent al-Qaeda or ISIS from using Afghan territory to stage attacks on the U.S. homeland?
That's the $64,000 or $64 million question. I can't answer that. I really can't. I mean, we have looked at our training of the Afghan military, and as I mentioned to you, most of the indicia of measuring success are now classified, or we don't collect it. So I can't tell you publicly how well a job we're doing on training. So those $64 billion has gone for training and assisting the Afghan military, and I can't tell you or the American people. And that's in part because we allow the Afghan government to classify what I can tell you and what I can tell the taxpayers. So it's very difficult for me.
And the metrics, if I could just clarify on that point, the metrics, how we measure success when it comes to the Afghan security forces, like how we measure success with our Afghan strategy as a whole, Afghanistan strategy as a whole, continue to shift, right? I mean, we have changed those. We, being the Pentagon and other administrations, have changed those over time. So when one metric doesn't appear to show success, then we shift to a different metric. And when it doesn't show success, then we shift to a different metric. Is that fair to say?
That's absolutely correct. We did that 3 or 4 times with the metrics on that. Every time we looked at it, they changed it.
Yeah, well, and I have to say that I have posed this question to our military leaders, and they've given me the same answer that you've just given me, which is, they don't know. Let me ask you this. What specific data points would you want to see to be confident that Afghan security forces actually have a shot at becoming self-sufficient?
Well, I would go back to, again, I'm not an expert on security. I'm just a simple country lawyer, I came from the Midwest. I came from Ohio, close to the Kentucky border, Mr. Chairman. And you would ask a simple question, if you were buying a house, show me your progress on it. Well, I think one of the progress questions we would ask the Afghans is, how many people do you control? How many of your citizens are under your control, and how much territory? That's now not relevant, apparently. It used to be, then it isn't. I would also come in to the same metrics we use to rate our own soldiers and our own airmen and see if those are being applied. I mean, this isn't rocket science. The other question is, how many Afghan soldiers do we have? We're still trying to figure out how many we are paying for. How many Afghan police are there really? We don't know. So, this isn't rocket science. But apparently, it's all secret, classified, and I can't tell you what the results are. I'd be happy to go into more detail. We have a whole list of everything that's been classified, and it keeps growing. And the latest one was looking at the Afghan Special Forces, which is fantastic. We put a lot of money in that. But the number of independent missions that the Afghan Special Forces are doing has gone down. Now, I am not a betting person, but I will bet you that next quarter, that database will be classified. Because every time we find something that looks like it's going negative, it gets classified or it's no longer relevant.
I'd like to underscore that point, because I think that's really, really significant. You're saying that the metrics that we have used to measure success or progress when it comes to the security forces, when it comes to the Afghan government, every time they show negative progress, reverse progress, in your observation, they then either are abandoned or they become classified. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So how are we going to measure any progress? I mean, how is the public or this Congress, which is supposed to be performing oversight, how are we going to measure any progress if we don't have any access to data or metrics?
That's the point we've been trying to make over the last 5 or 6 years.
Let me ask you a question about the economy. Our integrated country strategy for Afghanistan says that development of a functioning Afghan state requires a growing Afghan economy. Makes sense. But do we have any evidence that the legal Afghan economy is in fact growing on a consistent, sustainable basis?
Actually, the evidence is probably going the other way. The biggest, and I think one of the ways to look at this is look at the largest export from Afghanistan, and it dwarfs the legal economy, and that is narcotics. Narcotics is now anywhere from, I think, up to $2.1 billion is exported in narcotics from Afghanistan. The legal economy, is only $875 million. And that is one of the few growth areas in the 18 years we've been there, and that's narcotics.
Let me ask you about the trend lines with the Afghan state broadly. Can you point to any trends that cause you to believe that the Afghan government, the state, will be able to stand on its own in the near future?
The trend which is most optimistic is that the National Unity Government has recruited a lot of young, brave, intelligent recruits to their government. Many of them are Western trained. They're eager to do something and try to help. That's a positive. The negative is that that's going to take time to change the way the government's working. The real threat to the Afghan government continuing is the fact that over 75% of the Afghan government's budget is paid for by you and me and the other allies. And if without that 75%, the Afghan government and all those brave young Afghans will be out of work.
Can I just say, I know my time's expired, Mr. Chairman, so I'll just say in conclusion, thank you, Mr. Sopko, for your terrific work. Thank you for doing this work. I was just in a hearing this morning in the Armed Services Committee on this subject where we were told again by a panel of experts, many of them from the Pentagon, who've done tremendous service, by the way, so no personal criticism of them, but we were told that we needed to be patient, that we just needed more time and more investment, that it was worth it. And my view is if we cannot show any progress on any metric, we've invested $1 trillion, we've lost thousands of lives. I don't understand. The American people have been hugely patient, hugely patient. I just don't see. I don't see what's going on here, and I don't think anybody really knows what we're doing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Hawley.